Right now, I would like, with Dymocks Literacy Foundation and the Premier's Reading Challenge, to welcome Deborah Abela.
Hello, welcome everybody. This is a very exciting morning for me. I love doing this. I'm a little bit bamboozled by how it all happens, but it's great. Today what we're going to do, I'm going to talk to you about books and why I write books and why I love them so much, and also a little bit of the stories that I do write. And also I'm going to get you to actually be part. I actually write novels. So you don't need pens or pencils or anything. I just need you to start thinking in the way that an author does. To start us off is writers write about stuff they love. And in the last 9 years since I've been writing novels, I've been writing about soccer players. My latest book's about ghosts, which I love and I'm fascinated by. And I've also written a whole series of books about spies. So that's the Max Remy book, my very first book I ever wrote. And I wrote that probably now, it's probably almost 10 years ago that I wrote it. But I actually did another job before I wrote novels. And one of the great things about being a writer is there's not just one job you can do. Writing is the most amazing career path because there are so many things you can do. You can be a travel writer, you can be a cookbook writer, you can be a journalist for telly, you can be a journalist for newspapers, you can be, if you love sport, you might want to be a sports reporter or a sports journalist. There are so many different jobs you can do as a writer. My very first job was actually for television. Anybody, women sit next to me on the train, I'd say, I really want to get a job as a writer. Do you know anyone who can give me a job? And I realised I was actually quite good at this because most people stepped away and thought, who is this crazy lady? But one woman actually said, you know what, I know of a TV show that's starting, and they need an assistant producer and a writer who will work on the show. And I thought, that sounds perfect. Because being a writer is like being a soccer player, like playing the violin, like learning to dance. The more that you do it, hopefully the better you get. Every day I'd go to Channel 10 and I'd watch cartoons. And once I'd chosen the cartoons for the show, then the other part of my job was to decide, what are we going to do between the cartoons? Now, there were two young guys called Jade and Ryan who were the hosts of the show. And these hosts then I had to write scripts for, and then they would act these scripts out between the cartoons. And it was so much fun. I'd go to my desk every day and think, what crazy ideas can I come up with? But the very first part of being a writer is coming up with the idea. But once you've got the idea, then you have to think, how can I tell a really interesting, funny, engaging story with that idea? Then you have to then write it down. So it was lots and lots of fun. But after about 7 years, I thought, you know, I've got another idea. And I don't think it's to do with Cheese TV. I think it's something different. And it has to do with something that I did before I started Cheese TV. I actually went travelling around the world for 3 years. I bought this huge, huge backpack, almost as big as me, and solid, sturdy shoes. And I had loads and loads of different adventures. I woke up next to an alligator on this rusty old tin boat in the middle of Africa on this river. I got harassed by monkeys. I nearly got traded for a camel. So after the 3 years of having all those adventures, I came home, and there were some good adventures and some sad adventures, and I thought and I worked on Cheese TV, and I thought, after a few years, I'd like to write a story about a young girl who goes on adventures all over the world, just like I did. And then I thought to myself, well, how can this young girl get to travel all over the world? She's only 11 in the first book. And then I remembered a favourite TV show that I used to watch when I was a kid. Now, I'm going to see if someone knows this TV show. It was made into a film last year, and it's about a clumsy, bumbling, secret agent. Who thinks they might know the film or the TV show that I'm talking about?
Nicola and you, quick.
Get Smart. Yeah, Get Smart.
Yes, beautiful. Get Smart. Hands up anyone who's ever heard of Get Smart. And now I knew how my 11-year-old girl was going to get to travel all over the world. She was going to be a spy. And if you only remember one thing from what I say to you today, you've got to remember this. A writer's job is to cause trouble. This is a writer's job. We have to cause trouble. Without any trouble or complications in a book, there's no story. But I wanted to be different, and I knew it was going to be the last book of all the Max Remy books, so I knew I wanted it to be a little bit different, and actually, hopefully, kind of the most exciting book of all that I'd written. Max and Lyndon in this book don't get called to London because there's something wrong, but because there's going to be a huge party. So what if Spy Force turned 50? So it's the 50th anniversary party. So there's going to be a huge big ballroom with balloons and streamers. There's going to be waiters on little hoverboards floating throughout the crowd, handing out lots of treats, lots of ice creams and fudge and chocolate and lots of donuts and candies and Chocolate, yeah, more chocolate. You can never have enough chocolate. But also, while they're handing out all these beautiful treats, dotted all around the edge of the room are going to be these enormous, huge, giant chocolate fountains. Beautiful, streaming, luscious pools of melted chocolate. And all around the edge of these chocolate fountains are going to be giant, rich, ripe strawberries. But so far, I haven't done my job as an author. So far, there's no trouble. I've just set up this story, and now I need to think, well, what's going to happen next? David, beautiful, yes, Big Ben. What if, as people are watching this gorgeous big tower and they're taking photographs and they're standing there having their pictures taken, what if as they look, they then notice this crack that appears, a tiny crack at first, but then it gets wider and wider, and then the entire Big Ben just collapses and falls down. So Buckingham Palace, where the Queen stays in London when she's visiting, someone's looking up, they're taking photos, and then they notice this tiny little crack. And then another crack, and then an entire wing of Buckingham Palace falls down. Now we've got our trouble. Now I'm doing my job as an author. So Max and Lyndon and all the other spies are called back to Spy Force headquarters. So while they're in Spy Force headquarters, there's a big video screen all around the top of the room, pinpointing every place on the planet. They're accessing data banks and satellite systems. They're desperately trying to work out what's making these buildings fall down. Now, you're going to help me start writing this novel. If you had this situation, you had spies with gadgets, you had big famous buildings outside of London falling down, and you thought, you know what? I've created a little bit of trouble, but I want to create even more trouble. What would you do? Let's go with Hassan's idea. What if, as Max and Lyndon and all the other spies are desperately trying to work out what's going on, someone looks up, and Hassan, not at the start is there a big crack, but when they look up, there's just a little crack. And they know exactly what's going to happen. Pretty soon it's going to be a big crack, and the whole of Spy Force is going to start to lurch and fall down. Now we've got some trouble happening. So, luckily for us, Hassan, Max and Lyndon and all the other spies in Spy Force rush downstairs out of the building. They stream downstairs. Underneath Spy Force are a series of escape tunnels. Max and Lyndon rush into those tunnels. There's panic, there's confusion. Max is kind of short and clumsy like me, so she's getting elbowed in the head and she's falling down and almost tripping over. And then something else happens. What could happen? What else happens? They're desperately trying to get out. They can see the exit, and then
Rocks fall down so it blocks the entrance.
rocks fall down and totally block it?
Yeah.
Totally block the exit. So maybe just a couple of rocks at first, so you know there's a time limit. You've got to get out there before the rest of the tunnel collapses, but too late. What's your name? Mitchell. In Mitchell's story, too late. It comes down and blocks the tunnel. What beautiful suggestions. This is how you write a novel. You think of what problems I can face, my characters can face it next, and how can I get them out of there? I thought to myself, what if, as Max is running through the tunnel, she looks ahead, and then she looks behind, and she can't see her best friend. She can't see Lyndon, and she's thinking, well, we both came down together. We were both in the elevator together and in the tunnel together, and now he's not here. Where is he? There's no way Max is going to leave the tunnel without knowing where Lyndon is. So she takes out her Palm computer. On it, she brings up a map of Spy Force. Now, Max and Lyndon wear these tiny little round tracer bugs. They're just little button-shaped devices. They wear them in their pockets. Now, these can show Max and Lyndon where the other always is. So a green flashing light always says to Max, that's where Lyndon is. That's where his tracer bug is. So there are two more bits of trouble that I've created. The tracer bug is way upstairs in the top of Spy Force headquarters in the kitchen. Max is thinking, what's he doing in the kitchen? He should be here. Now, the other bit of trouble is the green flashing light is flashing over and over again on the same spot. It's not moving. Lyndon should be getting out of that building white hot fast. What's happened to Lyndon?
It got knocked out of his pocket.
Oh, what's your name?
Hannah.
Hannah. Oh, sorry, I did hear that. Hannah, beautiful idea. Now, that's a nice way of using your imagination. What if the green tracer bug, the tracer bug actually fell out of his pocket, maybe in the panic of, him trying to get out? It's not Lyndon at all. So beautiful ideas, but eventually you've got to decide which one am I most excited about.